Welcome. So, have you ever looked out at your classroom and just wondered how you can possibly connect with every single student? You've got the book-smart kid, the artistic dreamer, and that one student with just incredible street smarts. If that sounds familiar, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to dive into a framework that can totally transform how we see our students' potential, Robert Sternberg's Triarchic theory of intelligence.
Okay, so to get us started, let's begin with the story. This quote actually comes from the guy who created the theory, Robert Sternberg, and he's talking about his own childhood test anxiety. I mean, that's a feeling a lot of our students know, right? That feeling of dread. And for him, this personal experience, the stress and the limits of traditional IQ tests, that became the spark for his entire life's work.
That feeling of panic really pushed Sternberg to challenge our very narrow definition of what it even means to be smart. He saw that the tests we use, they often miss this incredible diversity of human intellect. They tend to focus on just one tiny little sliver of what it means to be intelligent.
So this slide shows what Sternberg called the 5 red herrings of intelligence. Basically, these are common myths that really get in our way. This idea that intelligence is just some single, fixed number we're born with, something we measure with these super artificial tests that don't have much to do with real-world problems. This flawed way of thinking is exactly what he wanted to change.
So he came up with a whole new definition. Instead of just thinking about academic skills, he defined intelligence as mental self-management. What does that mean? It's really about how we use our minds to figure out the world, to make sense of things, and this is the key part, to succeed in our own environment, not just in a classroom. For us as educators, this is a total game changer.
And this bigger, broader definition led him to his main idea, that intelligence isn't just one thing, it's actually 3. So let's break down the Triarchic theory itself.
Okay, here they are, the 3 core types. First up, you've got analytical intelligence. This is your classic book-smart student. They are fantastic at analyzing, comparing, evaluating. They crush it on standardized tests. Then there's creative intelligence. This is your ideas person, the student who loves to invent, imagine, and design things. Their grades might not always show how brilliant they are. And finally, we have practical intelligence. This is the student with what we call street smarts. They can take a concept and just apply it to the real world like it's second nature.
I love this analogy because it makes it so clear. Picture a business plan. The analytical person, they can brilliantly compare and contrast a bunch of different plans. The creative person, they're going to invent a completely new, out-of-the-box plan. And the practical person, they're the one who can actually take that plan and make it a huge success.
But here is the most crucial part. People are not just one of these things. Nope, most of us are a blend of all 3. Real success, what Sternberg called successful intelligence, isn't about having a ton of just one type. It's about knowing which ability to use at the right time. And our job as teachers is to help our students find and develop that balance.
So this all leads us to the million-dollar question for every educator out there, right? How do we take this amazing theory and actually use it in our classrooms, in our lesson plans every single day?
Right, let's get practical. Let's roll up our sleeves and look at some real, actionable strategies you can use to bring this theory to life.
Sternberg laid out some really helpful principles to guide us, which you can see here. Now, instead of just reading you a list, let's zoom in on a couple that are absolute game changers. For instance, he says we have to assess all 3 skills, analytical, creative, and practical, not just the analytical ones that our tests always seem to focus on. Another big one is helping students learn to capitalize on their strengths, sure, but also to actively compensate for their weaknesses. It's all about building that self-awareness. Let's make this super concrete. Think about a history lesson. For the analytical part, you could have students compare and contrast the strategies of 2 opposing generals. For the creative part, you could ask them to write a diary entry from the perspective of a soldier on the front lines. And then, for the practical part, you challenge them to design a plan to resolve a similar type of conflict that's happening today. Boom! One topic, all 3 intelligences engaged.
Okay, but let's be real. No theory is perfect. And to be really good at what we do, we need to understand the whole picture, critiques and all.
So some of the pushback on the Triarchic theory is that the terms can be a little vague, that there isn't as much hard data backing it up as some researchers would like, and that it doesn't really dig into how these intelligences might change as a person grows up. It's just important to have these points in mind as part of the bigger conversation. Now, you've probably also heard of Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, right? It's really interesting to see how they compare. While the details are different, Sternberg is all about 3 broad ways of thinking, while Gardner talks about distinct domains like musical or kinesthetic. Their shared goal is exactly the same: to get us to move beyond a single IQ score and embrace a much more complete, holistic view of our students' gifts.
So if you strip everything else away, if there is one single thing to walk away with today, it's this. This is the most powerful takeaway for every single one of us. Intelligence is not fixed. It's not something you're just born with. It can be taught, developed, and strengthened in every single student we teach.
So I'm going to leave you with a little challenge. As you think about your students and the lessons you have planned, what's one small change, just one, that you can make this week to intentionally recognize and engage all 3 types of intelligence? The answer to that question could unlock a whole new world of potential in your classroom.